Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Let's move on to one Boris Johnson. His views eagerly sought on the EU question, of course, but he's a busy man, penning a weekly newspaper column, currently writing a book on Shakespeare, Member of Parliament, and for a little longer, Mayor of London too. So what conclusions can one draw from looking at his official diary over the last couple of years? Andrew Cryan reports.
September 2014. The Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, has a big announcement.
OK, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for waiting such a long time. I'm very pleased to say that the Uxbridge and South Rise Conservative Station have done me the honour of picking me to fight the election in 236 days as their candidate.
With all this attention on his return to Parliament, Labour say the inevitable result is that Boris Johnson will become a part-time mayor.
Hello, my friends!
So, to see what difference it really made to his scheduling, Sunday Politics London acquired a copy of the Mayor's diary through a Freedom of Information request. We compared the 12 months starting September 14, when he was selected to fight Uxbridge, and compared it to the previous year. However, rather than a drop-off in activity, we counted a slight increase in the number of appointments. But there are questions about how Boris Johnson has chosen to prioritise his time.
Obviously, analysing the Mayor's diary doesn't tell you everything about what the Mayor does with their time. On the other hand, it is a piece of minor science in understanding the broad distribution of the Mayor's time in terms of particular issues. And so I think, in an era of media transparency, all mayors must expect this kind of analysis.
The single biggest thing you could do for Londoners at the moment is to build tens, if not hundreds of thousands of new homes.
The Mayor is fond of saying that his priority is housing. However, our analysis of his diary shows more entries dedicated to Conservative Party political activity than any other single issue, some 294 appointments. This compares to 223 for transport, 197 for meeting the media, and housing a distant fourth with just 122. Labour say he's got his priorities wrong.
We've been monitoring that diary for the last 4 years. Your latest disclosure around that diary just proves the point. He's spending more time on Conservative Party activities or meeting with the press than dealing with issues here at City Hall. And what we see is actually he's been deemed mob happy, but it's not just since the general election, the last 4 years.
But City Hall told us that just looking at how entries are marked in the diary can be misleading.
You're drawing conclusions from the title of a meeting or who that meeting is with. What's quite clear is that a part of the Mayor's work is through those meetings which you're analysing, and there are thousands in his diary, as you can see. And in addition to that, he will be working with senior advisors, talking to people, and driving the business of this administration.
But perhaps more than the number of diary entries dedicated to issues like housing, it's Boris Johnson's record that Londoners will judge him on.
Indeed, but let's look at this minor piece of science. Karen Buck, has he got his priorities right?
Well, I think the delivery is where the problem is rather than the diary, and I think it sort of reflects the fact that he's a man who's a bit of a showman, who's a character, but who simply has not spent time and effort getting to grips with the very serious problems that London faces. And I think it's certainly been true in this last year. He's diffused his energy, he's come into Parliament, and he's let things slip. And so what's happening in London? There's 10,000 people dying a year from air pollution, violent crimes going up. We're just not seeing any real focus from Boris on those issues, and I think that diary pretty well tells us where his energy and his priorities have been.
You agree?
Come on, I mean, this is to coin a phrase, it's an inverted pyramid of piffle, this whole story. Let's be brutally honest about it. I mean, Boris, of course there's party activity. Everyone has a lot of party activity in the run-up to an election. Now, if he was going to be the MP for the Outer Hebrides, then I could say, yes, you are splitting yourself in a difficult way. But let's be honest, the priorities that he has as a Mayor of London are not dissimilar to the ones he has as a candidate and now as an MP in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. One of the great things about Boris Johnson, as everyone who's known him, and I've known him over half my life because we were at university together and beyond, he's a fantastic delegator. He's got a great team around him from the days of being being president of the Oxford Union, to being editor of The Spectator, to being mayor of London. He's got very, very good people around him. He gives obviously the strategic overview, and they get on and do quite a lot of the work. So I think this really is an absolute non-story. I think that Boris has been utterly focused right through, and obviously we're now in a position in the last few months of the mayoralty. He's got a whole range of initiatives that are bearing fruit, from Crossrail to issues to do with housing, which I think the record is a very strong one, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years.
Very briefly then, what's wrong with delegating if you get things done?
There's nothing wrong with delegating, but I think, we have this incredible city which faces a lot of challenges, and I just think Londoners deserve someone who's kind of fully focused on the job. Now, of course, that doesn't mean every minute is going to be spent without doing any party meetings or media. Of course, people are going to do that, but it's also to do with the issues, the concerns that Londoners have, things like crime, things like pollution, that Boris doesn't seem to be spending any time on.
Thank you very much.
I've been getting away with it all my